My name is Claire Whitman. I was 29 when I learned that betrayal does not always arrive with shouting, broken glass, or dramatic confessions. Sometimes it walks in wearing gym clothes. Sometimes it smiles at you like you are the problem. Ryan forgot his water bottle that morning. It was sitting on the kitchen counter beside the coffee maker. Silver. Scratch near the lid. The same bottle he carried everywhere after joining that new fitness studio across town. He had rushed out half awake, muttering that he was late for his training session, kissing the side of my head instead of my mouth. At the time, I told myself not to overthink that. I told myself a lot of things back then. We had been together a little over a year when we moved in together. Ryan was charming in that easy, golden boy way that made strangers like him before he even finished a sentence. He liked noise. Weekend plans. Restaurants with loud music. And friends who dropped by without warning. I liked quiet mornings. Folded laundry. Coffee before conversation. And knowing where my keys were. Somehow, for a while, we worked. He used to tease me for being too calm. You're impossible to read, Claire, he would say, smiling, like it fascinated him. I thought he meant I made him feel steady. Later, I realized he meant I didn't give him enough drama to chase. The change started small. Ryan joined a gym called Forge House after saying he wanted to get serious about his health. I supported him. I packed protein bars in his work bag. I listened when he came home excited about new routines. Sore muscles. And how intense his trainer was. Her name was Marissa. At first, I knew her only through his stories. Marissa said his form was improving. Marissa said he had strong legs. Marissa said discipline changed everything. Then, he stopped talking about her. That should have been the first warning. His phone started staying face down on the table. He began showering the second he came home. Some nights, he smelled less like sweat and more like expensive cedar cologne. Owns? While we were eating takeout, his phone lit up. Great session today. You're stronger than you think. The name on the screen was just M. Ryan grabbed the phone so fast, his chopsticks fell. I looked at him. He laughed. Too loudly. What? Nothing. I said, you're doing that thing. What thing? That quiet detective thing. I remember setting my fork down carefully. Should I be detecting something? His face hardened. Don't start. That was the first time I felt it. Clearly, the distance between us was no longer accidental. He was building it on purpose. Still, I stayed. People think staying means you are blind. Most of the time, it means you are hoping the person you love will stop insulting your intelligence before you're forced to admit what you already know. Then came the water bottle. I saw it after he left. Sitting there like a small excuse from the universe. For a few minutes, I ignored it. Then I picked it up. I thought maybe I could surprise him. Maybe we could grab lunch after his workout. Maybe I could remind him we were still a couple. Not two strangers sharing rent. So I drove to Forge House. I did not call. I did not text. That was my mistake. Or maybe it was the only honest thing I did that week. The gym smelled like rubber mats, Mattel, and eucalyptus cleaner. Music pulsed through the walls. I stepped inside holding Ryan's bottle. Already scanning for him, near the weight racks. I found him, near the back, on a stretching mat. Marissa was behind him. She was close. Too close. Her hands were on his waist, guiding him through some stretch that did not require her mouth near his ear. She said something I couldn't hear. And Ryan laughed. Not polite laughter. Not nervous laughter. The kind of laugh someone gives when they forget they belong to someone else. Then her hand slid lower, and my body went cold. I stood there long enough for the scene to become permanent in my mind. Long enough for Ryan to notice me. Marissa stepped back first. Ryan didn't. He looked annoyed. Not guilty. Not startled. Annoyed. Claire, he said. What are you doing here? I lifted the bottle. You forgot this. His eyes flicked to it. Then back to my face. Okay. Thanks. Marissa smiled, like I was interrupting a private joke. I looked at Ryan. Is this part of the workout? He exhaled sharply. She's helping me stretch. I can see that. His jaw tightened. Don't embarrass me here. That was the moment. Not her hands. Not his laugh. Not even the way he had been lying for weeks. It was that sentence, "Don't embarrass me," as if I had created the scene by witnessing it. Marissa tilted her head. Some partners get insecure around training. It happens. Ryan gave a small laugh. And there it was. The final crack. He laughed with her. At me? I looked at him for another second, waiting for something human to appear on his face. Shame. Regret. Fear. Anything. Nothing came, so I set the bottle down beside his gym bag. "You're right," I said quietly. "I shouldn't embarrass you." Ryan blinked, confused by my calm. I turned and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry in the lobby. I didn't demand answers. There is a kind of pain that burns too hot for tears. I drove home with both hands on the wheel, obeying every traffic light, every speed limit, every ordinary rule in a world that suddenly felt unreal. When I got back to the apartment, I sat on the couch and stared at the space where Ryan's shoes usually landed, in a careless pile by the door. Hours passed. He didn't call. He didn't come home. At un sprezece, szapte sprezece. My phone buzzed. Staying at a friend's place tonight. Don't wait up. I read it once. Then again. Then I placed the phone screen down on the table. For the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what to do. I went to the closet and pulled out 2 empty moving boxes. The first shirt I folded was the blue one Ryan wore on our second date. For a moment, my hands paused. Not because I was having second thoughts, because I was remembering how different he used to be. That was the dangerous thing about heartbreak. The memories never arrive in order. Your mind doesn't show you the lies first. It shows you the smiles, the road trips, the inside jokes, the version of someone you desperately wish still existed. Then reality catches up. I folded the shirt and placed it in the box. By midnight, most of Ryan's belongings were packed: clothes, shoes, toiletries, the expensive headphones he'd insisted he needed, the collection of protein powders crowding half the kitchen cabinet. I packed everything carefully. Not because he deserved kindness, but because I deserved peace. There would be no screaming scene, no broken dishes, no dramatic social media post, just an ending. When I finished, the apartment looked strangely larger, like someone had opened a window I didn't realize had been painted shut. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. Whoever was outside wasn't giving up. I glanced at the clock. 8:12 a.m. Part of me assumed it was Ryan. Maybe he'd finally decided to come home. Maybe he'd rehearsed an explanation on the drive over. Maybe he'd discovered that consequences were real. I opened the door. The person standing there wasn't Ryan. It was a man. Early 30s. Dark, jacket. Exhausted eyes. The kind of face people get when they've spent several nights not sleeping. He held a phone in one hand. For a second we just stared at each other. "Claire Whitman?" he asked. "Yes." His shoulders sagged slightly, like he'd found the person he'd been looking for but wished he hadn't. "My name is Daniel Carter." I waited. He swallowed. "Ryan's involved with my wife." The words landed softly. Too softly. I should have felt shocked. Instead, I felt tired. "Your wife is Marissa?" I asked. His eyes widened. "You know, enough." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then, he held up his phone. "I thought you deserved proof." I stepped aside. "Come in." Daniel entered cautiously, looking around, as though he expected Ryan to appear from another room. Instead, his attention landed on the boxes, stacked beside the wall. His expression changed. "You already packed his things last night." He gave a short laugh that sounded more sad than amused. "I wish I had your decisiveness." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Ryan and I had once planned vacations, the same table where we'd discussed paint colors and future apartments and impossible dreams. Now it was a witness stand. Daniel unlocked his phone. Photos appeared first. Ryan and Marissa leaving a hotel. Ryan and Marissa entering a restaurant together. Ryan and Marissa sitting far too close in a booth. Then came messages, hundreds of them, flirting, complaints about their partners, inside jokes, plans, promises. The deeper I scrolled, the colder I became. The affair hadn't started recently. It had been going on for nearly 2 months. 2 months of lies. 2 months of fabricated gym sessions, 2 months of me sitting at home, wondering why my boyfriend seemed distant. I handed the phone back. Daniel studied me carefully. "You're taking this surprisingly well." I looked out the window. I think I already grieved the relationship before I had the evidence. His expression softened. That answer clearly made sense to him, because he had been living through the same nightmare. "Marissa kept telling me I was paranoid," he said quietly. Ryan said the same thing. Daniel laughed bitterly. Funny how cheaters all seem to read from the same script. For the next 20 minutes we talked. Not like strangers. Like survivors comparing notes after the same storm. He told me how Marissa had become obsessed with her appearance over the last few months. How she'd started guarding her phone. How she'd become defensive whenever he asked simple questions. I told him about Ryan's late nights. The secret messages. The gym suddenly becoming more important than everything else. Neither of us interrupted the other, because both of us understood exactly how foolish and humiliated the other felt. Eventually Daniel stood. "I should go." I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he hesitated. "There's something else." I waited. "I'm confronting Marissa this afternoon." His jaw tightened. "At the gym?" That surprised me. "Publicly. I've spent 8 weeks being lied to." Public feels appropriate. Part of me imagined the scene, the shouting, the accusations, the inevitable collapse. Another part of me felt exhausted just thinking about it. Daniel must have noticed. "You don't have to come." "I'm not going." He nodded slowly. "Probably the healthier choice." At the door, he stopped once more. "You know, when I drove here, I expected you to hate me." I frowned. "Why would I hate you?" "Because I'm connected to all of this." I shook my head. "No. We're connected to the same people who caused it." For the first time since arriving, Daniel smiled. A genuine smile. Then he left. I closed the door and leaned against it. The apartment was silent. For several minutes, I stood there alone. Not crying. Not angry. Just accepting. The relationship was over. Not maybe. Not probably. Over. My phone buzzed. Ryan. The screen lit up with his name. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. A moment later, a text arrived. "Can we talk?" Another message followed. "Please." Then another. "It's not what it looks like." I actually laughed. Because after everything I'd just seen, that sentence was almost impressive. The audacity, the desperation, the complete refusal to accept reality. I set the phone down. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. This time, I knew exactly who was standing outside. And judging by the force of the knocking that followed, Ryan wasn't coming to apologize. He was coming to save himself. The knocking became louder, not frantic, demanding. Like Ryan still believed this was his apartment. Like he still believed he had the right to be heard. I opened the door. He stood there breathing hard. Gym bag, hanging from one shoulder. His eyes immediately found the boxes. Every ounce of color drained from his face. "What is this?" I crossed my arms. "Your belongings." He stared at them. Then at me. Then back at the boxes. For a few seconds, he genuinely looked stunned. As though consequences had never occurred to him. "You packed everything. You stayed somewhere else." "Claire, you told me not to wait up." His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Already searching for an angle. An explanation. A way out. "I can explain." I almost smiled. That's usually what people say after they're caught. His expression hardened. Immediately defensive. Immediately angry. There it was. The version of Ryan that always appeared whenever accountability entered the room. "You don't even know what happened." "I know enough." "No. You don't." He stepped forward, lowered his voice. "It's not what you're thinking." I looked at him steadily. "Then tell me what I should be thinking." For a moment, he had nothing. Nothing at all. Because the truth was standing between us. And no amount of creativity could make it disappear. Finally, he rubbed a hand over his face. It got complicated. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised both of us. Complicated. "Claire. That's the word you're choosing." His frustration rose visibly. "I wasn't planning this." "Planning what?" He looked away. That answered everything. Not planning to get caught. Not planning to lose the apartment. Not planning to face consequences. I made mistakes. Plural. Interesting. So, it wasn't one mistake. He immediately realized what he'd said. Too late. Silence filled the room. The kind that tells the truth before anyone speaks. Then Ryan's eyes became wet. Real tears. Or at least convincing ones. I don't want to lose you. The sentence should have mattered. Months earlier. It would have shattered me. Now it sounded strange. Like hearing a favorite song after you've stopped liking the artist. You already did. His face crumpled. No. Yes. You didn't even fight for us. There it was. The blame. The final refuge of selfish people. I stared at him. You cheated. It wasn't serious. I almost couldn't believe he said it. The same defense. The same predictable script Daniel had described. It wasn't serious, I repeated. No. Then why risk everything? Ryan had no answer. Because people don't destroy meaningful relationships over things that mean nothing. Deep down. Even he knew that. He took another step forward. I ended it. When? What? When did you end it? His silence lasted half a second too long. I nodded. Exactly. He hadn't ended anything. He'd been exposed. There's a difference. His shoulders sagged. For the first time. Genuine fear appeared. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing the life he'd become accustomed to. The apartment. The stability. The certainty that someone would always forgive him. I'm sorry. I believed he was sorry. Sorry for the consequences. Sorry for the embarrassment. Sorry for the collapse. Not sorry enough to prevent it. Just sorry enough to suffer from it. Take your things. His eyes widened. Claire. Take them. He looked around the apartment. The walls. The furniture. The kitchen. All the ordinary things he'd assumed would always be there. Then he looked back at me. And finally understood. This wasn't a fight. It wasn't a break. It wasn't a temporary separation. It was over. Completely. A strange calm settled over his face. Almost resignation. Then his phone rang. The screen lit up. Marissa. The timing was almost poetic. Ryan stared at the screen. Then declined the call. I noticed, so did he? Neither of us commented. A second later, another call came. Then another. Then another. His face tightened. Something was happening. Something bad. My phone vibrated at almost the same moment. A text from Daniel. It's starting. I already knew what he meant. The confrontation. The gym. The explosion that had been building for weeks. Ryan's expression shifted from fear to panic. He typed something rapidly. No response. Typed again. Nothing. The next message came from Daniel. People are recording. I looked at Ryan. For the first time all morning, I felt something close to pity. Not enough to save him. Just enough to recognize a human being watching his own choices collapse. He saw me reading. What happened? I didn't answer. His face became pale. What happened? Claire. I met his eyes. I think the truth finally arrived. For a second. Neither of us moved. Then Ryan grabbed his gym bag. Not the boxes. Not his belongings. The gym bag. The thing he thought could still help him fix the situation. And he ran. Actually ran. Out the door. Down the hallway. Toward the elevator. Toward a disaster he was already too late to stop. The apartment fell silent. I closed the door. Locked it. Then sat on the couch. A few minutes later, another message arrived from Daniel. It included a short video. I hesitated before pressing play. The footage showed the lobby area of Forge House. A crowd had formed. Employees. Members. People pretending not to watch, while clearly watching. At the center stood Marissa. And directly in front of her stood Daniel. No screaming. Not at first. Just facts. Dates. Message. Hotel receipts. Questions no innocent person could answer. Marissa looked terrified. Not because she'd been caught. Because she'd been caught publicly. The difference mattered. As the video continued, several people recognized names. Recognized situations. Recognized lies. Whispers spread. Phones appeared. Someone started recording from another angle. The trainer who owned part of the facility attempted to intervene. Daniel ignored him. Every hidden thing was suddenly visible. Every excuse was collapsing. Every carefully maintained image was cracking. The video ended. I stared at the screen. Months ago, I might have felt victorious. Months ago, I might have replayed the footage repeatedly. Instead, I simply set the phone down. The strangest part wasn't the anger. It was the absence of it. The storm had passed, and all that remained was clarity. That evening, Danielle sent one final message. It's done. Marissa moved out. I filed for divorce. Thank you for being honest. I stared at the text for a long moment, then replied. You deserved honesty. So did I. A few seconds later, 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. then appeared again. Finally, his message arrived. We both deserved better than them. For the first time all day, I smiled, not because anyone had won, because the pretending was finally over. The silence afterward was almost unsettling. For months, my life had been filled with tension I couldn't name. Question. Doubts. The constant feeling that something wasn't right. Then suddenly it was gone. Not fixed. Gone. Like a fever finally breaking. The first thing I did was clean. Not because the apartment was dirty. Because I needed movement. I washed the sheets. Reorganized closets. Vacuumed every room. Opened every window. By the end of the weekend, the apartment felt different. Lighter. As if the walls themselves had been holding their breath. Ryan tried contacting me. Of course he did. The first messages came from his number. Then from unfamiliar numbers. Then through email. Then through social media. Each message followed the same pattern. Apology. Excuse. Regret. Promise. A cycle. Spinning endlessly around one simple fact. He wanted access to me again. Not necessarily because he loved me. Because he wasn't ready to accept losing me. There is a difference. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after everything happened, I sat at my kitchen table, reading another email from him. The subject line read, "Please just read this." The message was long. Very long. Ryan claimed he'd been confused. He claimed Marissa had manipulated him. He claimed he had been unhappy without understanding why. He claimed losing me had made him realize what truly mattered. I read every word. Then, I deleted the email. No dramatic response. No angry reply. No final speech. Just delete. The action felt strangely powerful. Because it wasn't about punishing him. It was about choosing myself. After that, life gradually settled into a rhythm again. Work, home, friends, sleep, normal things, healthy things. The kind of things that had quietly disappeared while I was busy managing someone else's chaos. I also switched gyms. There was no chance I was stepping foot inside Forge House again. The new gym was smaller, less trendy, less performative. People actually worked out instead of filming themselves doing it. I liked it immediately. One Saturday morning, the gym hosted a charity run for a local youth program. I almost didn't attend, but staying home had become too easy. So I signed up. The weather was cool, cloudy, the kind of morning that smelled like rain. After the run, everyone gathered near a row of folding tables covered with water bottles and snacks. That's where I met Nathan. At first, nothing dramatic happened. No cinematic moment. No music playing in the background. No instant sparks. He accidentally picked up my coffee. I accidentally picked up his. We both realized it at the same time. Then laughed. Simple. Normal. Human. Nathan wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was the first thing I noticed. No performance. No carefully crafted image. No desperate need for attention. Just honesty. We ended up talking for nearly an hour. About work. About terrible traffic. About how expensive coffee had become. About everything and nothing. Eventually, he looked at me thoughtfully. You seem like someone who's been through something recently. I laughed. Is it that obvious? A little? That bad? No. He smiled. More like you've learned something. That answer stayed with me. Because he was right. I had learned something. Not about cheating. Not about betrayal. About myself. I had learned that loyalty means very little when it only flows one direction. I had learned that peace is more valuable than being chosen by the wrong person. Most importantly, I had learned that love should never require you to ignore reality. Nathan and I exchanged numbers. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. We grabbed coffee a few days later. Then dinner. Then another coffee. Every interaction felt easy. Not perfect. Just genuine. Months passed. The drama surrounding Ryan and Marissa slowly faded into the background. Occasionally, I heard updates through mutual friends. Apparently, Marissa's marriage officially ended. Ryan bounced between excuses and self-pity. The gym struggled after the public scandal. Membership dropped. Management changed. Rumors spread. None of it mattered much anymore. One afternoon, nearly 6 months later, I drove through the old neighborhood on my way home from work. At a red light, I happened to glance toward Forge House. The building looked different. The sign had been removed. Construction materials sat near the entrance. The place was undergoing major renovations. I stared for a moment, then laughed softly. The symbolism felt almost ridiculous. The place where everything fell apart no longer existed in the form I remembered. Somehow that seemed appropriate. The light turned green. I drove away. That night, sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, I thought about Ryan for the first time in weeks. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just perspective. The truth was, I no longer hated him. Hating someone requires energy, and he simply wasn't worth that much energy anymore. Did he hurt me? Absolutely. Did he betray me? Without question. But people are rarely defined by a single, terrible choice. Ryan wasn't evil. Marissa wasn't evil. They were selfish, careless, addicted to validation, and eventually those choices cost them more than they expected. As for me, I finally understood something I'd spent months searching for. Closure is not a conversation. It is not an apology. It is not hearing someone finally admit what they did. Closure happens when their explanation stops mattering. When their version of events no longer controls your peace. When you wake up one morning and realize you haven't thought about them at all. A text notification pulled me from my thoughts. Nathan. Made it home. Hope you're having a good night. I smiled, then typed back. I am. And for the first time in a very long time, it was completely true.